Good morning, boys and girls. I'm Eleanor Hawkins, and welcome to Telestory Time. The Library, a Magic Castle. Come to the Magic Castle when you are growing tall. Rows upon rows of windows line every single wall. They reach up high as the sky, and you want to open them all. For every time you open one, a new adventure has begun. The Library, a Magic Castle. And now, boys and girls, our very first story that I've chosen for this morning is entitled Winter Tree Birds. In summer, when the leaves are green, the trees are alive with happy birds. They sing and nest among the leaves, and by eating harmful insects, they help the trees to stay healthy. Now it is winter and the trees are bare. Only a few birds fly here and there. The days are cold and gray, and most of the birds have flown away to warmer places. And here is the chickadee, the tufted titmouse, the downy woodpecker, the white-breasted nuthatch, and here is the brown creeper. But all the birds do not fly away. The chickadee, the tufted titmouse, the downy woodpecker, the white-breasted nuthatch, and the brown creeper, all five that stay. Their bright and cheerful calls can be heard all winter long. How busy and quick they are, these five. They fly from tree to tree looking for food, for they must eat a great deal to stay alive. They eat the harmful insects that were missed by the summer birds. They eat insect eggs and cocoons. They help keep the trees healthy and strong until the leaves bud in the spring. These winter tree birds do not know they make a team, but to people who watch them, they seem to all work together. On the twigs and branches, there are tiny insect eggs which are harmful to the trees. The little downy, the titmouse, and the chickadee all best able to work on these parts of the trees. Working on tiny twigs is the smallest of the team, the chickadee. With his sharp little beak and his bright black eyes, he finds many insect enemies. On each twig he goes around and often clings upside down as he pecks for insect eggs. He is a round, gray bird with a black cap on his head and a black bib under his bill. The lively chickadee is never still for long. He is always pecking, always moving, and all the while he sings a cheerful song. The tufted titmouse is a little larger than the chickadee. He takes care of the larger twigs on the trees. He may be a slower worker than his cousin the chickadee, but he works very carefully. He is a pretty soft gray bird with touches of brown on his breast. As he poses on a twig, he shows off his jaunty crest. The titmouse has a call that is loud and clear. He is a joy to hear on bleak winter days. Now, the third bird on the winter team is the downy woodpecker. He works on limbs and branches of the tree. Perky little Downy is black and white. He wears a small red patch on the back of his head. He cocks his head from left to right as he circles the branches for insect eggs. With his sharp claws, he clings to the side of a branch, and his stiff tail helps keep his balance. Every day from morning till night, his strong, sharp bill taps into the bark. Now, the chickadee takes care of the tiny twigs. The tufted titmouse takes care of the larger twigs, and the downy woodpecker takes care of the limbs and branches. On the bark of most tree trunks, there are deep cracks. Little pockets are formed. These pockets make fine homes for cocoons and insect legs. Here they are sheltered from rain and snow. The white-breasted nuthatch and the brown creeper look on the tree trunks for these hidden enemies. Down the trunk he goes again, goes the nuthatch. Almost always, he works upside down as he goes around the trunk and down to the ground. When he finishes one tree, he flies to the next. Down the trunk with his long pointed bill, he pokes under loose bark and finds hidden cocoons and insect eggs. The nuthatch is a pretty blue-gray with a white breast and a little black cap on his head. He works upside down most of the time, but he doesn't seem to mind a bit. Now, the brown creeper is the fifth of this winter bird team. His back is the color of the bark, so sometimes he is hard to find. He doesn't have much of a song to sing. His call is a squeak that is high and thin. He pokes into the bark with his long curved bill as he creeps up the trunks of the trees. Now he never goes down, but always up, around and around and around the trunk. He finds many insect eggs and cocoons in this funny way. The chickadee takes care of the tiny twigs. The tufted titmouse takes care of the larger twigs. The downy woodpecker takes care of the limbs and branches. The white-breasted nuthatch and the brown creeper take care of the trunks of the trees. Upside down, right side up, around and around and around. Peck, 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 tap, 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 from the top of the trees and down to the ground. All winter long, this five-bird team helps keep the trees healthy and strong. When breezes become softer and days grow longer and the song of the robin is heard, then it is time for spring to arrive and the trees will bud again. And boys and girls, let me remind you that this is the time of year, the winter, that birds really need to be fed. Now, these five birds take care of themselves, but all the other beautiful birds are really needing to be fed. So remind your parents that you would like to feed the birds in your yard, and watch all the beautiful birds that will come to be your friends this winter. And so now it's time for me to read Big You Know in just a moment, so please stay tuned. Boys and girls, now I'm going to read from our Big Do You Know book. Do you know that many famous people were born in January? Do you know 3 presidents were born in the month of January? Do you know Richard Nixon, our 37th president, was born on January the 9th, 1913? Do you know that Millard Fillmore, our 13th president, was born on January the 7th, 1800? Do you know that William McKinley, our 25th president, was born on January the 29th, 1843? Do you know George Washington Carver, born a slave on January the 5th, 1864, in Missouri, became one of America's leading scientists? In his experiments with peanuts, he found more than 300 products that could be made from peanuts, including wood dye, soap, linoleum, plastics, flour, paint, and even ink, and many kinds of different oil. Do you know Albert Schweitzer was born on January the 14th, 1875? He was one of those rare geniuses. He was a theologian, a philosopher, a writer, a medical doctor, and even a missionary. Do you know that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January the 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia? He received many awards for his nonviolent, direct action approach in seeking equal civil rights for all Americans. We all remember his famous, outstanding speech, "I Have a Dream," which he delivered to more than 250,000 Americans on August the 28th, 1963, in Washington, D.C. We celebrated his birthday this week, and we always remember that speech that he gave, "I Have a Dream." Do you know Benjamin Franklin was born on January the 17th, 1706 in Boston? He attended a school for only 2 years. He was excellent in reading. He was a jack of all trades, and as a publisher, he developed the Pennsylvania Gazette into one of the most successful newspapers in all the colonies. He wrote and published Poor Richard's Almanac, which contains his witty saying, "Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise." He was also an inventor, and he invented the lightning rod, the Franklin stove, and even bifocal glasses. Boys and girls, be sure and visit your public library sometime during this next week and check out some very good books at any of the libraries in the Craven, Pamlico, Carteret Regional Library System. Check out a very good book on your very own library card. And now stay tuned, and I'll be back with another story in just a moment. And now, boys and girls, I'm going to read the story, Davy and the Snow. Davy Brown was moving to a new home far from the house he had always lived in. He worried about it a lot. All the way there he thought, "Will I like it there? Will I like it in Hilltown, so far away?" The new street had tall trees. The new house had a big backyard, and Davy had an interesting time exploring inside and out. "Well, Davy," his father asked, "how do you like your new home?" Well, I think I like it," said Davy, "but why is it so cold here?" "Oh, we are up in the north now," Davy's mother explained. "When he lived in the south, it was always warm, but winter is cold in the north, and it's winter now in Hilltown." Now, the next morning, David and his mother and his father and his grandma and his grandpa, too, ate their breakfast in the new house. "Davy thinks it's cold in Hilltown," said his mother. "It will be even colder tonight," said Grandpa Brown. "Look at the sky. I think we are going to have some snow." "Snow?" said Davy. "Well, tell me all about snow." "Well, now it's hard to explain," said his father. "Snow is, well, it's white. When the snow comes down, everything looks white." "Yes, snow is white," said Davy's mother, "but snow is cold, too." "That's right," said Grandpa Brown. "Snow is white and cold, but it's wet, too. When you pick up snow, your hands get wet." "Yes, Davy," said his grandma, "snow is white and cold and wet. But snow is beautiful, too. It's soft to walk on and beautiful to look at." The next morning, David opened his eyes. He lay in bed wondering. Everything was strangely quiet. There were no morning sounds, no sounds of cars and traffic, no sounds of people coming and going. Oh, he jumped out of bed and ran to the window. Then Davy just stood and stared at what he saw. The whole world looked different. Everything was white. The trees, the houses, the backyard. The snow had come down softly in the night, and covered it all. "Oh, how white the snow is," thought Davy. He opened his window a little and put his hand out on the windowsill. For the very first time, he touched snow. "Oh, how cold snow is," he thought. He looked at his hand. "It's wet, too." When Davy ran out to play that morning, he had more clothes on than he had ever worn at one time before. A warm hat and coat, warm mittens, a warm red sweater, and best of all, shiny new black boots. Davy walked happily around in the new snow. Each time he put his foot down, he could see the print of his boot. "I'm the very first one to walk on this snow," he said to himself. "Everywhere I walk here, I'm the very first one." Then Davy picked up some snow and rolled it in his mittens. Why, it made a ball. He threw it at a tree and watched it make snow spatter. And then Davy made one snowball after another, throwing them at trees and fences. Soon a boy with a red woolen cap and a red mittens came by, pulling a sled. "Hi," he called to Davy. "Want to ride on my sled?" Davy got his first ride on a sled. First the boy pulled Davy on the sled, and then Davy pulled the boy. They walked to the end of the street where there was a little hill. Again and again they sledded down the hill. When they were tired of sledding, they began to roll a big snowball down the hill. It grew bigger and bigger and bigger. Soon they had a great fat snowman. They gave him a silly face and a silly hat, and then they took turns throwing snowballs at him. Davy was astonished when it was time to go home. That night Davy said, "Well, why didn't you tell me what snow is like?" "But Davy," said his father, "we did tell you." "Snow is white, isn't it?" said his mother. "Snow is wet, isn't it?" asked his grandpa. "And isn't the snow beautiful, Davy?" said his grandma. "Oh, of course," said Davy, "but that isn't what snow is most of all." "Then what is snow, Davy?" asked his mother. Davy thought of all the things he had done that day. Why, it's to play in," said Davy. "Most of all, snow is fun." And that is the story of Davy's Snow. And now, boys and girls, stay tuned, and we'll be back with another story in just a moment. And now, boys and girls, get very comfortable and ready to listen to the story, The Gertrude Bird. In a town far away, there once lived a little old woman called Gertrude. She lived all by herself. No one ever came to see her and tell her the news of the day. But Gertrude didn't like to talk to people. She wanted to be alone. Gertrude cooked and baked, but she never gave any little cakes to the children in the town. One day Gertrude put on her black dress and her white apron. Then Gertrude made a cake. Oh, it was the best cake that she ever had made. And just as she was about to sit down at the table and eat her cake, a little old man came to the door. "My good woman," said the little old man, "I was just walking by your house, and I smelled your good cake. May I have one of your cakes to eat?" Gertrude looked at her cake on the table. "Oh, this cake is too big to give to you," said Gertrude. "Come in and sit down by the fire, and I will bake you a smaller cake." The old man came in and sat down by the fire, and Gertrude made a little cake. She put it into the oven to bake, and when the cake was done, it was bigger than the cake she had made for herself. "Oh, this cake is too big to give you, said Gertrude. "Sit by the fire, and I will make you a little cake." The old man sat by the fire, and Gertrude made another cake. She made it just as small as a cake could be, and then she put it into the oven to bake. And when the cake was done, oh, it was the biggest cake of all. "Oh, this cake is too big to give to you, my good man," said Gertrude. "You had better be going on your way, for I have no cake to give you." The little old man got up out of his chair and went to the door. A light was all around him all of a sudden. "Gertrude, Gertrude," said the little old man, "you do not know me, but I am the fairy that sits by your fire. I like those who are kind. Oh, you are a selfish old woman, Gertrude. I do not like selfish old women." The little old man went out of the door, and Gertrude never saw him again. Then Gertrude sat down at her table to eat her cakes, but Gertrude had no hands to eat with. Gertrude was not an old woman now. Gertrude was a red-headed woodpecker. And now, boys and girls, when you see a red-headed woodpecker, you will see Gertrude's black dress and her white apron. She now lives in the woods, and she does not eat cake. She has to work to find anything to eat. She picks and she picks and she picks away at the trees all day long. So when you see a red-headed woodpecker, you must think of Gertrude the bird. And now, boys and girls, I want to read from one of my very favorite books, and it's entitled, "Reading Can Be Fun." If you can read, you have the key that opens the door to the world of books. Come in. When people first read stories to you, you learn what fun it is to meet the new friends in books. You meet animal friends as well as men and women and boys and girls. What they do and how they feel seems almost as real as what happens to you or the boy next door. Making believe that you are doing things anywhere at any time with friends in stories is one of the very best ways in the world to have fun. All you need is a good book and a comfortable place to sit quietly and find out what happened to Peter Rabbit in Mr. McGregor's garden, or how Jim Hawkins sailed with pirates. When we haven't quite learned how to read for ourselves yet, we can share our storybook friends with people who read for us. All our lives, one of the nicest things about having friends is having others know them too. There are so many friends waiting in books to meet you that story time can hardly ever seem half long enough. Yes, you can meet Mother Goose. You can meet Peter Rabbit and Pinocchio, Goldilocks, and here's Peter Pan. And over here is Mary Poppins. And down here is Cinderella, Dr. Dolittle, and then here is Billy Bogruff and the Oz people, and over here are the Three Little Pigs. And then here we have Pooh Bear, and we have Heidi and Mary Poppins. All of these are people that we'd like you to meet. And then as we grow older, we can meet Robinson Crusoe, Little Women, even Smokey. And down here is Alice in Wonderland. And then here are the Cowboys and Indians. And boys and girls, here is Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. Here is Jim Hawkins and Long John Silver. And up here is Lassie. All of these are wonderful friends that you can meet all through your lifetime. And you know, they will always be your friends. And boys and girls, let me remind you, share your book friends with some of your friends that maybe not have met them through reading. But we want you to always know that reading can be fun. And you can always go to your public library, any of the libraries in the Craven, Pamlico, Carteret Regional Library System, and check out a very good book on your very own library card. But always know that reading can be fun. And so now I say it's time for us to close our book of stories for this morning, but we'll be back next Saturday morning. Until then, this is Eleanor Hawkins saying, Bye-bye for Telestory time.